There we go. We're live. We did it.
Oh,
Welcome to the show, Steve. All right.
welcome.
Comedian and someone who just volunteered a ton of your time to the Cat Gazela campaign. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Tell me about how you first heard about Andor.
Um, I was a big Star Wars fan growing up, but not like the action figures and the consumerism. I just was like a big story guy because I've worked in production and stuff. And then when Rogue One came out, I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Like I didn't think that I've only seen the new trilogy like one time. And as an actor, like I don't shit on other people's work, like because if you can get paid for it, then God bless you. Somebody's cup of tea, it just wasn't my bag. But when I saw Rogue One, I was like, this is cool. And then when Andor came out, I like watched it in like 2 days. I was obsessed. So I watched your episode with Charles last week. He's a great guy. And yeah, I mean this is like my favorite TV show. It's not even like favorite Star Wars piece. It's like it's probably my favorite show. Um
Incredible. I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you're feeling after this election closed out.
I feel really inspired to be honest with you. And I was the being on this podcast kind of like put me on or well, live stream. It kind of put me in the Andor mindset because I was like, this is an insurgency. Like true progressive politics is like an insurgency. So um you are not necessarily always fighting for this technically was a tactical defeat, but it was a strategic victory. Um, we had a candidate who came out of nowhere who made such an impact on the national political scene that she completely shifted the Overton window of the race and the discourse around stuff like ICE. And if you're looking at it strictly from an insurgency standpoint, she effectively wasted the time, energy, money, and public approval that's already been waning of like one of the biggest bad actors in the dark money space. So the fact that they had to fight a battle on a front that they didn't even know existed to spend a ton of money to get their second choice elected is a win for everybody because it's going to make it easier for the next opponent who will learn from what they did to help her lose the race. And it's also just like they don't have infinite resources.
Yeah, it's true. It's good that I love the framing in the context of Andor. Um, I think that's kind of what makes this show special is it, like, helps us understand our politics. When I first watched this, saw the first episode where the corpo officers are roughing up Cassian. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, this is police brutality." And then now watching it, everyone was like, "This is ICE. These people are ICE."
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, it's useful to understand our politics now, but thanks for your work on that campaign.
Sure
Um,
thing. Thanks
this
to
is
Kat for she went out there and fought her ass off. It was not easy, so shout out to her.
yeah, yeah, big shout out to Kat from the Andor Rebellion Project. All right, you ready to get into episode 7?
So ready.
Okay, this is the aftermath of the robbery of the garrison, the beginning of a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
But we open with our boy Cyril eating his cereal. Tell me about your take on the character Cyril Karn, one of our favorites.
Yeah, Cyril Khan is the most difficult kid in Model UN. That like was so pedantic that like the teacher was like, this kid is I hate this kid. Like, he's the only one who
Mhm.
participates in class, but it's like you're calling point of order parliamentary procedure in sophomore year of high school. Like, lighten up. No, I like how Cyril is there's so many like good like caricatures of not caricatures, they're like fleshed out characters, but there are like archetypes of fascists. And one of like the archetypes of fascists that I think about with Cyril is like the person who follows all of the rules and likes the rules because it's how he asserts power over people. Like, he feels emboldened by lawfulness, you know? And,
Mhm.
I think he's a dweeb. That's that's like and that's what, like, he's trying to reassert that power, like, it's a guy whose mom has his number, but
Yeah.
he gets to assert his masculinity by his ability to, you know, uphold the law, quote, unquote, you know?
Right, yeah. The mom is a crazy relationship. I think that's why this show is so great, because it's very honest about what our characters are like. They're not hero space wizards, they're real. Like,
Yeah.
Cyril getting his uniform tailored all the time, and his mom pointing it out and saying, "Your collar's high." And he's like, "Why is this a problem? Yes, I got my
Mhm.
uniform tailored. It's the second uniform we know he's gotten tailored." And she
Yes.
says, "Well, it sends the message that you're desperate for approval and you're insecure." And it's like, where did this come from? Possibly the mother that can approve of anything he does?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
this whole episode, like, this was kind of a challenging assignment because you're like, you only have to
Mm.
watch episode 7. So I only watched episode 7. And I'm glad I did because this whole episode is about, in my opinion, like just sticking to the text, the screen is about mothers and fathers.
Mhm.
It's about the like and we can get into it. But yeah, no, I think it's an interesting scene to open up on based on what happens later in the episode. And we see how these like paternalistic and maternalistic relationships play out over the course of the episode and how they play into the overarching like ways that each of these characters either props up fascism or fights against it.
Mm. Wow, the chat really likes that take, I guess. I think it was Freud who said that misogynists typically resent their mothers for making their fathers miserable or absent.
Ooh, that is good. That is there we go. That is yeah, there you go. That's zero for you. He is that yeah, that's he does have like Ed Gein if he was an accountant energy, you know?
Yeah. Okay, tell me more about this theme. The more I think about it, the more you're right. We get Marva and Cassian. We get Mon Mothma's family situation and some insight as to their weird traditional values. Okay,
Yes.
tell me about this theme.
Okay, so the interesting thing about so if you break down like all of the female characters in this episode, you have Marva's arc, you have Mon Mothma's arc, you have Cyril's mom, and then you have what's
Fix?
intel the intelligence
Oh,
officer,
Dedra.
Dedra, right? So like Mon Mothma is playing. Hang on, I actually wrote this down because I'm a huge nerd. Like I
Yeah,
said, I used
I
to
take
work in.
notes every episode. You're not
Okay,
alone. Yeah.
good, good. No, so Mon Mothma's kind like each of them is using their gender to do something, whether they're aware of it or not. Like Mon Mothma is I always say that like beautiful women and ugly men both make great spies for the opposite reason. Like beautiful women have access to places and have to create defense mechanisms and like they like I don't know, I'm speaking out of class here obviously, but like you know there's the Marlene Dietrich like kind of they listen and like they're underestimated and they use that to their advantage. And we see Mon Mothma doing that because she's basically kind of like doing the Daisy Buchanan like idle rich, like, oh, I have this charity. And she says, she's like, I'm annoying them, and that's okay because I can do what I'm really trying to do. And she's playing her high school boyfriend off of her husband, and she's using them both because she knows that the high school guy still has a thing for her, and the husband is just like kind of this like dandy Tom Buchanan, like, you know, get wasted, do whatever I want. And she's like, that's fine. I'm going to let them think what they want about me while I am literally the executive producer of an insurgency. So she's using her femininity as in like the most base interpretation, like what base people think of a woman, to undermine what they actually stand for. And it's interesting because she's a mother, right? And Marva is using Marva. This isn't like as much about gender, more about like why I think Cassian is a good character and why I think he's a good guy is because like mothers like always fight because they love something. It's like very base, like their defensive postures because they're defending their children, or this is, but it comes from a place of like love and abundance. Whereas I think men, it's more about fear, fear of loss, right? Like fear of losing something. And so Marva's kind of doing the thing where she's like, I can't go anywhere. I can't leave and you can't stay. And Cassian is just like, I'm gonna go be free or whatever. But at the end of this episode, we see why Cassian is goes from being like this rogue to joining the rebellion because he gets to a place where he is imprisoned, just like Marva is by her grief. Like, so and then the cool thing about this is that, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but
I love this, keep going, you're great.
the cool thing is that in the last episode, when Daedra, that's her name, when she's at the briefing, she says they're really smart because they never hop over the same fence twice. But in this episode, Cassian tells is it Biss? I think
Fix,
Biss.
yeah.
Bix, he's like, remember when I used to jump into the junkyard and your dad used to catch me, right? So it's like, and if you're looking at it from like an OPSEC, like human like point of view, like, or even just like if you're like investigating a homicide, like you never look for a body, you look for the car because it's easier to find a car. So it's like you don't look for a spy, you look for his family, right? Because you know he's going to go back to the family. So that's the fence that he keeps hopping over. And that's kind of his why statement for this entire thing. And Marva is already in a prison of the Empire's design because she won't walk down that street every day anymore. And I think I don't want to ruin the end of the season for first time watchers, but it's pretty cool to see her liberated. I'll just put it that way, in a way, right at the end of it. Um, so I this is one of those episodes where I feel like boys watch stuff like me as a boy. I'm always like, oh, the heist, man, let's go. And then but on my second watch, I always appreciate the aftermath because like I get to see the like more but and then I want to get to Daedra. So the Daedra thing is actually the most interesting one to me because we have all these kind of like matriarchal things, right? We have like the Marva thing where she's like this like old rebel who kind of raised Cassian and basically saved him from, we talk about the Aldani raid. You talked about the Aldani raid last time and how there's this like erasure of indigenous people. And Cassian would have been victim to that based on his story were it not for Marva and her like bringing him in. Um, so he's kind of like rooted in this like larger sense of something larger than himself. But Daedra, who we know is an orphan, very much is answering to like kind of a father figure, right? With this guy who's what's his name? He looks like he's from Game of Thrones. I don't know his name, but he's the
Mhm.
head dude.
Yeah,
And
he's
he's
so
kind
good.
of he's great. He's kind of got everybody at the table and he's like pitting his children against each other. And what happens, right? She speaks up and the one guy does the rule thing like, "Oh, you're breaking the rules." And then he goes, "No, I think Daedra's like got the right idea. Like we need to start thinking about asymmetrical warfare because that's what our enemies are doing, right?" And then on her way out, he gives her praise, but then he says, "Watch your back," right? Which is like
Mhm.
typical like dad energy. Like it's like, "Oh, good job, but also it's never enough. So keep pushing yourself." There's no it's like all very conditional and transactional with him, and she's kind of like rejecting her femininity. I don't know how to say that word, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So am I mansplaining right now? I'm sorry. I just kind of like
Not at
talked a
all,
lot.
no. No.
Uh
I love thinking about Dedra in that way. As,
and
like,
she
she's someone who, has been criticized by her peers for trying to climb the ladder by taking her job seriously, but is just someone who's really passionate about her work. Um, and the fact that she is giving her subordinates this work of really narrowing in on Cassian Andor, like finding all of the Imperial tech that has been stolen, asking for this comprehensive report that's going to take sleepless nights to complete, and asking for complete discretion and really being stern about it because this is all she knows is that there's an Imperial Star Path unit missing that ties things back to where she sees the rebellion beginning. And so that dynamic as well of like your boss puts the boot on your neck and then you put your
mm,
boot on your subordinate's neck is just a classic scenario. But there's a couple peer-to-peer relationships that are interesting. And I think as someone who's been in the movement, I'm curious your thoughts. One of them being when Mon Mothma is going to take Kolma from back home, who's now getting involved in the charity work, right? Financing the rebellion. And he says, "Oh, my politics might be a bit strong for your taste." And they're
yeah,
sussing out the degree to which each other are radicals. It's
yes.
so good. We've anyone that's in the left in America has had these exchanges.
Yes. It's like yeah, that whole thing they do is it's kind of like flirty slash like sussing you out. How much can I trust you? That's why I think Mon Mothma's a genius though, because she kind of knows that she's kind of doing the thing where it's like, you know how like really bad people will say something awful and say, "Oh, I was just joking." Right?
Mm,
But like she could very easily have I'm just flirting with you. Like I'm just joking, but like from like a different end of the spectrum, but it's very like playful, you know what I mean? Like you can tell they had a thing back in the day, but they're using the context of that relationship to uh try and figure I don't yeah, there is like there you do kind of have those conversations. I mean, like everybody does now. Like even if you're just like at work, like you want to know how far how honest can you be with somebody about what you actually believe? Which is pretty perverse. That's a really good I never thought about that. But it's
yeah,
cool.
with the state of surveillance especially.
Yeah, no. And it's kind of like it's kind of interesting too, that scene specifically, because the like you got the surveillance part and then you have like the personal stakes, which is like this is somebody I loved once and I will know about their values based on their politics, which is very much like right now, right? If you see
Mm,
somebody with a red hat with white letters, you it's like getting punched in the gut if you went to high school with that person and you used to count them as a friend. Like so, I mean, obviously, like, it's pretty crazy that I relate to these characters in a fictional universe that are, like, trying to suss out if the other one is, like, a cop. Uh, I was at
yeah,
a party the other night, and, one of my friends, she's, like, really smart, and I'm kind of a golden retriever, so somebody, like, walked up to me, and they're like, "Hey," like, they stuck a microphone in my face and I like just looked at her and I'm like, is he a cop? And then she's like, no, he's cool. But like there are times when I don't have the bandwidth to try and like be subtle. So I'll just ask somebody I trust if they trust them. You know what I mean?
yeah. Totally. And her own husband is not someone she trusts. And you're right that the kind of weird flirting with Tay Colma is like, well, he'll be mad about this and offended by this, so he won't be thinking of this secondary thing that we're financing the rebellion.
Right, right.
Yeah. And then, okay, wait, there's actually two other peer-to-peer relationships I want to ask you about. Let's go to actually Kalea and Vel.
Uh,
Vel is asking Clea about Cinta, and it's weird because Clea is obviously Luthen's number two, but
mhm.
Vel has been used to directly working with Luthen, so now there's this middle person, and there's that tension there, but also she is worried personally about Cinta, and Clea's like, you can't ask about that, it's a liability, this is a revolution, you have to go kill Cassian Andor for security purposes. Like, can you do it? And it's such a tension of power because you feel like these two people should be peers, but it becomes clear that Clea is above Vel in the rankings, and that's awkward. So there's a lot that happens there. I'm curious what you made of that scene.
That's a that's a really good, there's a lot of, there's a lot of, like, my mom always told me that she never let me play with odd number of kids because, like, you're always one kid's always left out.
Yeah,
And, when you're writing a scene, like, if you're doing, like, something where you want somebody to get into an argument, like, and there's a group of people, just leave 3 people in the room. Just get 2 people off if there's 4 people, get one of them off stage, and something interesting is gonna happen, right? Um, Not an easy thing to do, though, by the way, because, when you have somebody who isn't in the room, then you have two characters that are just talking about somebody in the room. So you have to be rooted in an objective. Like each person has to want something from the other person. And in this scene, it's a really good uh it they you can it's so messy. Like
yeah. Like Luthen is the third person who's not there, but his presence is felt.
right. And the and Vel wants the wait, run that back for me again. Vel is Mon Mothma's cousin.
Yeah.
Cinta is the woman who was
Oh
on
yeah, the
all
girlfriend.
yes, the girlfriend, right.
Yeah.
And then what's Luthen's cutout? What's her name?
Clea.
Clea, right, right, right,
And so
right.
Luthen could be the third that's presence is felt, or Cinta.
Or Cinta, right.
Yeah.
Um the it's interesting though, like watch Vel's a great character because she's always kind of like I'm hardcore, but also like so she's always constantly trying to fight her love for Cinta
Yeah.
and like almost kind of over compensates for that perceived weakness by like being so hardcore about stuff. But like it's kind of telling, right?
Yeah.
And that's like you can tell she's vulnerable when she's like with Clay. Clay is the obstacle, right? Like she's getting in the way of the person that she cares about most. And I think at the end of the season, it's Cinta that ends up doing that job, or right? Sorry, am I ruining this? But like the Clea begins to, I think Clea begins to question her and Luthen are like the most ruthless of the entire crew, right? Like they're like, if we want to beat the Empire, we have to be the Empire. And
Mm, yeah.
that's a good call out though. That whole triangle is really interesting.
Mm.
How do you write something this good?
I don't know. I mean, we know that Tony Gilroy studied fascism and, like,
Mhm.
fascist governments in order to write this. So he just said, like, I put in the tactics of what they do because people have been saying, "How would you predict all of this?" And he's like, "Well, because they have the same playbook that they reuse." Um,
Who's the other
Mon Moth
peer-to-peer relationship?
So I wanna talk about Mon Mothma and Luthen. Um, how she
Yes.
rolls up ahead of the party, and she's not supposed to, and she can tell by how happy he is that he's the one who did this, and she's feeling at risk because she's trying to secure new lines to finance everything, and he was stressed out that she's bringing someone new in. He
Mhm.
couldn't say why, and now it's revealed, but she understands to a degree why he couldn't say anything, but she's still terribly afraid.
Mm.
And so it's sort of a reversal from their last exchange about this, where Luthen pushes on Vel, "You have to bring Cassian Andor into the fold, you don't have a choice." And then Mon Mothma shows up to Luthen, "We have to bring someone new for financing this into this, you don't have a choice." But then we see that sort of get reversed, and,
Mm.
now Luthen is the one that's happy and Mon Mothma is the one that's freaking out.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good, there's a lot of symmetry in this, like narrative symmetry, where it's always like push and pull, right? He's like putting
Mm,
these characters in these like tensions. The I think it's so interesting that um there's always like the person who comes from a place of privilege, not a judgment. Mon Mothma is using her privilege to fight fascism, but this is kind of the one where she realizes that this, and Luthen even says it. He's like, this rebellion is coming. Like, this is what we are doing. Like, you can only be in Coruscant being chauffeured around by the ISB so long before this becomes like an actual street fight for you.
mm,
And um yeah, that's like when he goes in there, and I think that the reason I like that scene a lot is because it's I think it's like the first time she sees just how far he's willing to go.
mm,
Because she's like, there are people that are going to receive collective punishment for this, and he's like, I know. He's like, I've just accelerated it, but the problem is that it happens so slowly that people get used to it. And I was listening to you and Charles talk um last week, just about how like leftists are never wrong, they're just early.
mm,
And like you can't the very nature of just like being the person who's most afraid of shit like this happening is that you feel like you're screaming into the void, but the only way for people to understand that you weren't just screaming into the void is that you're just like more like prepared and like able to see it. And so like I think Luthen has been that person who's just like, I have watched this happen for so long and watched nobody give a shit, and he's like, this is where we're going, so I'm just gonna put my foot on the gas and like let's go, which from a moral standpoint is reprehensible. And I can understand how somebody at the end of their rope is just like, it's like it's like when it kind of happened to me this year, like from a comedic standpoint. Like I was like, are you supposed to call out, like how hard are you supposed to go against Democrats? I like started like asking myself because like, and
mm,
then as soon like that only lasted like 4 weeks. I was like, I actually think it's more strategically viable to go after establishment Democrats because they've proven to be weak. And they're but so anyways, so it's like, yeah, fine, let's go. If we're gonna lose the midterms, then let's fucking lose them. So that way, like if you guys think that Janet Mills has got the charisma, like, I obviously don't want us to lose the midterms. You should go vote in the midterms. You should go vote for Democrats, especially in battleground states. But sometimes I get so angry with what's happening because it just seems like they're trying to lose. I mean, they're collaborating, really, a lot of them. So I can relate to Luthen's anger, and I can relate to Mon Mothma's shock because you want to be on the right side of this stuff. You want to be the one who's fighting against it.
Yeah, it's interesting how everyone involved kind of goes home to their place where they're the most radical person. Like Cassian goes back to Ferrex and he's the odd one out. We see Mon Mothma go to this party, and that's almost like its own kind of prison, being the radical in a room of elites and having to constantly play a part. Luthen has to pretend to be running this shop. Cassian has to pretend like he's just settling debts and he just wants to get away because he got in a kerfuffle. No one knows he just was at that garrison. And so it's interesting watching everyone when they come together. It's different. Mon Mothma feels like the most conservative of the bunch because of her background, but at that party we see that she's the complete outcast and is risking everything and drinking worms. Would you drink the worm?
Yeah, absolutely, one million
You would do
percent.
it?
Yeah, I
I
have
feel like
Malort
it's
sitting
sour.
on my
What do you think
desk right
the
now.
worm tastes like?
It probably just tastes like whatever the booze is.
That's a good point. It's like how they put like scorpions in tequila or something, or the worm in
Yeah,
the tequila. Yeah,
yeah. I drink like gasoline. Are you drinking? What is that?
this is water.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I got water too. Yeah, I just like drink gasoline, like martini up. Like I don't want any like
Gin,
I
vodka,
vodka.
and just
Oh,
straight.
yeah, I mean, I
Straight.
tell the server, I'm like, look at the vermouth. Like, look at it. Just like
Okay.
that's how much vermouth I want in there. Just
A
look at the
drip.
vermouth. Yeah, just like boop.
Like
Uh
put some in the shaker or stirring vessel and then pour it out.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's exactly what I want.
I used to bartend, so that's how I figured it out. Yeah.
Bartenders are so fucking smartest people. Talk about good. They would you yeah, see. Um Actually, going back to Kat, that's why I thought Kat would be a good congressperson, to be honest with you. It wasn't because she had studied radical. I mean, that helped, but I was like, we need like bartenders and like movers, people who know how to move furniture through a door.
Yes.
Uh like um
Wow, that's such a good point.
I think that the and like honestly like go like it kind of connects to all of these characters that we're talking about in their interpersonal relationships, like none of the rebels can afford to be dumb. Like
Mm.
all of them have that kind of like, obviously like Vel like cleans up and she dresses down and like Mon Mothma's always pristine and Luthen kind of has this he's kind of like, but all of them play their roles perfectly and they play them with like this authority, like they know what Benicio del Toro said, and my acting teacher told me this one time. She was like, Benicio del Toro said that like if you want to have, you have a good character if you know when you read the script what they're carrying in their pockets, right?
Mm.
And all of the characters here like have that kind of like bartender ability to like size somebody up, assess like what do I need to give this person in order for them to feel served so that I can be compensated for my service,
Yeah.
right? And I think that you see Mon Mothma do that. You also see Luthen do it with her while he's performing like his role as like this arts curator, but then on the side, then he has to be like the leader of the insurgency, where he's also playing that role. And she's kind of shocked. She's always a little bit shocked when he goes into the like, oh, look at this piece. Like, and then, he's like, we need to accelerate this and then collective punishment. Um, yeah, sorry, I kind
Mhm.
of went off the rails there. That worm thing really, I do remember the worm. Would you drink Oh, I have a question for you. What's Revnog? What is she asking for
Oh,
from bed?
yeah. I okay, Revnog, I remember in the first episode, they're like, "We're not supposed to have this." To me, I think it's like beer.
Okay. You think okay, you think it's like beer?
Chat, what do you think? I think beer
Yeah, I think one of them's
or
booze.
yeah, and Mednog, another elixir, I think heals you or gets rid of pain.
Oh, okay, so there is kind of like a pharmaceutical, like, kinda they're I mean, I think Cassie's bored this episode, you know? Like,
Yeah.
he's kinda doing that, like, "I got all the money in the world and I'm free, but really, what the hell am I doing here?"
Yeah, just like numbing himself because he feels probably like he wants to go be in the rebellion again. That's what I think. But
Yeah.
I'm like, would Luthen find him in Miami? That's what I call Nymos. It's definitely Miami or Nemos. It's so Miami coded. Oh,
I was
spicy
actually
nuggets here.
that was a question I had, the what town is that? And that I put Miami, Dubai slash,
Oh my god, yeah.
but I think I like Miami. It's a little, it dresses down, like, there's definitely, like, some college kids, like, doing beer bongs on that of Rev Nog on that beach, like,
Yeah.
also, I there was one thing that I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
which, can we talk about how brilliant it is to use the robot to illustrate all cops are bastards?
Yeah. It's
Be
so good.
because, like, oh, it's part like, it's just, like, the easiest way to tell people, like, "Look, we're not it's the system. They have no choice but to fulfill that function until they are literally out of it and have been reprogrammed to," like, you know what I like, that is, like, the cleanest. I was thinking about that, like, we all have, like, a conservative that we know, and they always use, like, a cab, like, it's like, "No, no, no, you don't understand, like, it's just an acronym, but this is what we mean, you know?"
Yeah, no one's gonna Blue Lives Matter an Imperial security droid.
Yeah, no, exactly.
No.
Also,
And also the, like, "You need to calm down, sir." And y it just makes you frustrated, like, he's fine, he's calm, leave him alone.
yeah, no, that guy is like that guy is every cop in a small town.
Mhm.
They have these little, like, it's just like one scene, but you're like, "Oh my god, I know this guy. Like,
Yeah.
I know this guy." Oh, they're
It's
the
like, how
worst.
did they program in a high school where you're made fun of to getting a position of power? How did they program that in there? Because it's in there.
Yeah, yeah. It's the they just, yeah. You have an inferiority complex because you never got asked to Sadie Hawkins. So make sure that that's written into your code.
This
Um,
guy I bartended with took the police exam. He was, like, gonna try to be a cop, and then he failed the psych eval. Which was a we all knew him as, like, such a smart guy, he didn't have a temper, very just, and to this day, I'm like, "Did he fail the psych eval because he's too justice-oriented and, like, even-keeled, that he would be actually a disrupting force within the police?"
oh, that's an interesting, wow. Like, he would be too independent
He was
thinking.
just a good guy, a
Yeah,
very capable good guy. That's not what they need. They need someone
no.
willing to do the job.
Yeah, you gotta do the job and don't ask questions. And does it, like, infuriate you that the thing with, like, it doesn't matter if it's, like, if you have people that are American citizens that are armed with military grade weaponry, and their job is to use that military grade weaponry against the civilian population, that they are being trained to uphold a fascist regime. Like, this is why everybody, like, when people are like, "Oh, the National Guard's coming." I'm like, "The National Guard will do nothing. They do not train to police and harm civilians. In fact, in uprisings, which I'm sure you know this, I'm just sharing this for the, it's like actually when the National Guard gets involved, like the army gets involved, they usually end up fighting with the people, like with the people that are uprising, like happened in Russia, happened in the French Revolution. Like they put their guns down or they turn around and they're like, no, fuck the czar. Like, yeah, no, that guy sucks. Like we just had to go to World War I. Like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like I was more concerned about the fact that it's like, no, there's a town in Wisconsin that has a tank. Like you have a tank sitting in your parking lot. And you don't want to go use that thing. This shit writes itself.
Yep, yep, and that's something that I don't know, we end up talking about all the time on the Andor Rebellion project is, like, the military is in situations like the one we've been in Minneapolis, where it's a fight against the federal government, like, the military doesn't want to see force used against American civilians. They really see their role as fighting to protect life in America so that it doesn't look like the countries they go into. Like, at as much as I think a lot of the military people don't really see the power structures of imperialism the same way a lot of us do, I get why not. Like, I almost considered joining the military growing up working class.
Yeah,
It was the only potential route where I could get an education.
sure.
Thankfully, I got one without having to do that, but that's just reality. And so I
Yeah.
get why they think like that, but they are more likely to be on our side, and I think some of the purity culture we've seen on the left of, like, if you were in the military, you must be a part of the American empire and believe in it. I think that that's leaving power on the table for us in a situation where we're facing a government that's increasingly authoritarian.
Yeah, it's well, it's and it's like, um, like my grandfather fought in World War II. He's a radio operator in the Army Air Corps, and he told he never told my dad why he like used to wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, make a pot of coffee, and just stare at a corner. But it had because him and his uh, they were in they firebombed Tokyo. It was like the worst thing. They killed more people than the atomic bomb, and there wasn't a day in his life that he didn't go by and regret that. And he actually became very good friends with a guy who was a Japanese pilot. And he went and did like food research because he thought if people would never be hungry, there would never be wars. But he said, you know, anybody who thinks you can win a war has never fought one. And in Ken Burns' Vietnam documentary, that's the first thing that the North Vietnamese general says. He's like, we got home and, he was in the Viet Cong. He's like, we got home and they said we won. And he's like, you clearly didn't fight this war. Like, no one wins. But like, cops don't have that conversation because they're fighting unarmed civilians. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like a toxic, like, cop movie trope where the cop's like, I'll beat your ass. And then he like takes off his gun and he's like, let's do it, man, straight up. And then like, I'm not going to arrest you if you beat me up. And then the cop beats him up and they arrest him. And it's
Mhm.
like, "Wait, what? Like that you think like you're not this is the fucking stupidest. And listen, like I know a lot of cops. Like when I worked in production, there's always like a technical advisor. And um so like I like I have personal relationships with these people and I would characterize them as like good men, and they were cops. They were part of a system that was fundamentally rigged against the least of us. So I didn't know them as cops. I knew them as like retired or whatever. And I think that when they were cops, I'd like to think that they were good cops, but is there a good cop? I don't think so. Like, I think good is in like I don't think they would take joy in hurting other people, but it's kind of part of the job, right? Like,
Absolutely, and I think the increasing reliance on surveillance and AI is making it so that, no, we don't have imperial droids like this one walking around, but it's turning law enforcement into something that's apersonal. And if you have someone you don't like, you can find anything on them, and that's depicted
Mhm.
really well in this scene. But it also feels like what Kat went through with Ice. Like,
Mhm.
how do you brutalize someone and make it their fault? That's
Yeah,
what
no.
we're dealing with.
No, yeah, that's like, and it's like, and people who are like, you know, Operation Midway Blitz was, I'm gonna go with like, federal law enforcement invading your city, whether it's North Carolina or Minneapolis. Like, there's no such thing as a good war. There's no such thing as a bad wedding. Like, no such thing as a good funeral, and there's no such thing as a paramilitary force invading your city. But like, people don't realize that like you live on edge for weeks at a time. And like when we were under siege, they had they were switching their license plates, they were engaging in trade craft, and they had phones, and like they could just pull out their phone, they can scan your face, they know who you are, they know your status. They know where you live if you're in the databases that have sold the information to them. Um, it's even if you're just at a protest, like you're they see you, like they know who you are. And um there's a powerlessness to that this scene does a really good job with. And I this was the first time I'd seen the show since Ice was in Chicago. And when I mean like in Chicago, I mean like in our neighborhood. Like every single day for 6 weeks, we had a construction crew replacing the lead pipes in our street. And I was going and talking to the foreman and saying, I left the gate open, left the top door unlocked. You come in through the side, you run up to the top, and I know what to do. And I had like, I go to you go to the street at the end of the street, like, cause it's like a corner, and you're like, yo, this is my cell phone number. Let me know. Like if they're coming. And then it's like you're looking at cars with out of state license plates, you're writing them down, you like all that shit for like 6 weeks. And the the you see that paranoia with like Mon Mothma. It's not paranoia though, it's just like you kind of got to just do it. It's like habits. And I'm not
Mhm,
saying it was that bad for me because I can just walk down the street and do whatever the hell I want. I was just like choosing to pay attention a little more than I actually usually have to.
mhm.
But like there are people who, and that's the thing that drives me fucking insane about what happens in this episode with Cassian and what was happening in Chicago and Minneapolis is that Cassian just is walking in the same direction as the two people that are running, which I actually think is a pretty good read on you, which is that like he's bored and he wants to be part of the rebellion because
Mm,
he sees those two guys run past and it kind of piques his interest. So he keeps walking in that direction.
yeah.
But um he gets stopped. He just gets stopped just because based on the look of him. But like the thing that fucking pissed me off about like Minneapolis and Chicago and all this shit is they're like, well, they've dehumanized a group of individuals who they purport are like not working. But not only are they working, but they're showing up to work knowing they may not see their family they may not go home to their families just by the very nature of them going to work. Like, so sorry we've drifted into Ice, but it's all related.
It is
Um
because I bet Chicago feels a lot like Ferrix does. Ferrix post the occupation by, the corporate
yeah,
security ISB guys. And, you go back there and they're all pissed. They all feel the fight. Like you just radicalized Ferrix.
yeah. That's what like Ferrix is like. I was talking to my one friend and I was like, dude, like in the peak of it, and like I said, it was like 6 weeks and then they went to Minneapolis. But I was like, this is not any different than what's been happening for 60, for 100 years on the south side of Chicago. It's the same exact thing. It's just different uniforms. It's the same thing that's been
Mhm.
happening 100 years in Gaza, and yeah, but the Ferrex thing is like that's the I think that that's like I say Ferrex is like Northern Ireland, and they have that street in Ferrex. What's it called? But
Oh, yeah, where all the bricks are?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that it reminds me of the Shankill Road in Belfast, where the kind of the like Protestant neighborhoods and the Catholic neighborhoods kind of like backed up onto each other, and that's where the parades were for
Mhm.
like they would have like the Orange Day parades and the and yeah, you get that sense that like that's the other cool thing about the Marva character is that in 1969 when they did the Boscommon convention for the IRA, there was provisionals who kind of were like, we've had enough. Like Bloody Sunday, they're instituting this, and like this is like we're done. And one of the people who supported the provisionals was a person who had been at the Easter Rising, like which happened in 1916, right? They took over the post office, and it was again tactical defeat, strategic victory, because um, you know obviously it was horrible Irish Civil War, blah blah blah. But you always kind of have that like old head that's that's like, hey, listen, like I've survived this long enough, and I've just fucking had it. Like, and that you can just tell that that's when oh hey Reagan, say hi to the
Oh,
podcast.
hi.
Reagan. Not like the president, like the girl in The Exorcist, and then Captain Howdy's our other cat who's named after the demon.
Oh my
Um,
god. I love
yeah,
cats.
yeah, no, me too. We love these two cats. They're the best.
Oh.
Um, hmm, but yeah, no, Ferrex is like my favorite. There's so many overlaps between that and the Troubles.
Yeah, I think that's intentional. I think it was one of the inspirations for Ferrex. I read it, but it wasn't like from anyone that wrote Andor, so I don't take it as truth, but you can see it. Yeah. One thing is that I noticed in this episode, and it's my third time watching, and I'm still noticing new things that I haven't yet picked up on. But Cassian going to prison is such like a shocking thing, or like getting picked up, right? It's like, oh my God, he's in trouble with the law. But if he wasn't in custody, would he have been killed by Vel? So does this save him?
Oh, oh,
Like, does him getting in trouble save his life? Like, is he safer in custody than if he was just out and about?
oh.
Right?
Yeah, he does. He no longer becomes a loose end. Wow, that's a no, because then the that's such a good call, because like really he is and it's funny too, because it's like I said at the beginning when we had first started talking, like Marva's like, I'm in prison, I can't not have this fight.
Mhm.
And Cassian's like, well, I'm done with this fight. Like I got paid, bro. Like I'm going to Miami slash Dubai. Um and then one cool thing happens with Cassian, and this is definitely a Diego Luna. This is the Diego Luna choice in my opinion. But when his pseudonym or whatever is called, he does not react, which would get you killed. Like if you were in season 2, that would get you killed, right?
Mhm.
And so he's not part of the rebellion, right? Like he is just the thief that happens to be useful to the rebellion. But now we see him, we're gonna have his version of the Shank Hill Road, right? Like where she has to take the long way around. Like he's gonna go to prison and realize like, and it is kind of like what oh, see, this is why this is so smart. This is what Stellan Skarsgård. I can't do names for some reason. Oh,
Luthen,
Luthen,
yeah.
Luthen. This is what Luthen's character says, right? He's like,
Yeah.
they slowly put your neck on you before and you don't notice it, so we have to like do this all at once, and that's what they do to Cassian. It's like late, it's end stage capitalism in that prison. Like once you get there, like and it's just like his life, but faster and more brutal.
Mhm. Yes, yeah, and, like, I completely forgot they were gonna even try to kill him.
And yeah, no, I did too, actually. Like, I forgot that that was like a tension thing. Like, and then he kind of goes, and then I mean, he does kind of die to a certain extent. He like dies and comes back. He comes back a new person. My one of my creative writing teachers used to tell me, you just pay attention to rain and fire, and you'll know when a character is going to change, like water and fire. And if you think about how, you know, we'll talk about it at the end of whenever, but just keep it, if you chat, just keep an eye out for the water. Okay. It's going to be a good, it's going to be
Mhm.
a good payoff. I'm just dropping a little Easter egg there. Um,
That's good. We had,
what do you,
Anthony Carboni who does a lot of Star Wars stuff on the first episode, and, like,
uh,
so I trust him because he hosted, like, an Emmy award-winning Star Wars show, and the spoiler he dropped, first episode for all the first-time watchers was, "Don't get too attached to the whole sister thing." I was
oh
like,
God.
"Okay, yeah, I guess I agree, we can spoil that." Like, don't think about it, just focus on the rest of the plot.
Oh, that's right. He does kind of get into this mess because of family.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Okay, but what were you about to say? If you remember.
No,
Sorry.
I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think about when you've seen this episode 3 times? So like what are the things that you're like, dang, like I missed that? Or like yeah, tell me more.
Okay, that's definitely the biggest one, but this is also, like, another time where Clea is the person that's keeping people in check, like how Vel wants to contact Cinta, and she's like, "You absolutely can't," and how Luthen is wanting to keep monitoring and contacting, she's like, "You can't, like, there's nothing we can do." Like, she really is, just such, like, a presence of we need to be pragmatic and keeping people on track, but, like, you don't remember her as this big leader, like, her role feels very, like, behind the scenes. Even though she's there in person and going out and talking to everyone, for some reason, because of how she carries herself or something, it doesn't feel like she's the leader she truly is.
Yeah, that's so true. She's like,
She's
well,
like a quiet leader, and it's like Fred Ross Jr. says, "A real organizer gets behind the people and pushes."
yes, you can't yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or actually, when I used to work at a bar, so you can't push rope, you gotta pull it. You gotta step in line and pull it. And she does have like this God, and how she evolves throughout the show. And when you really get to see the but you see the discipline here and the just kind of she's like very cauterized. Like I call it like your soul is kind of like when you kind of have to compartmentalize so hard that there's a part of you that you've just like burned. Like you know when you like see a movie and somebody gets shot and then they like take an iron or a flame and they like she is like so singular in her focus. Like um and I always think about people's like why statements, you know, why are you doing this? You know, and
Yeah.
her why statement is so specific. And I'm not even like, we don't even know what it is yet, right? It's just, you can just tell just that there is this like, there is an outcome that she is going for because something made her this disciplined.
Yeah, yeah, you can tell that she feels it more.
Yeah.
Um Yeah, I don't wanna spoil her story, but yes. And as someone who grew up working class, I relate to her way more than Mon Mothma.
Hmm.
Um, but as someone who ended up going to college, I felt like Mon Mothma while I was at college, like, I don't fit in here with these very rich people, and part of that is because I disagree with them on paper, but also we're not like each other personally. And I think that's the only other thing I've noticed in the third watch of this episode is the Gorman mentions and how the people at the party are people she's working against in the Senate who are blocking trade routes to Gorman. That was mentioned in the last episode. And then this one, it's like, oh, she's at a party with all of the people from Gorman. Also, the last episode, oh no, where they mention it, it's the previous one, the trade routes blocking. But then last episode, she's giving a speech and they're talking about Gorman again. And so I forgot that there was such a lead up to what's going on in Gorman politically. And like we hear that Mon Mothma's in this fight, and I mean, it could be about Iran. Last time I watched it, it was about Palestine. It's again just so relevant.
It's just, yeah, and it always I when I worked in production, I worked for this executive producer. He was a director. He did like he worked on Deadwood and NYP. He was like one of the he did a lot. He won like 4 Emmys, but um super like humble guy who was very self-deprecating. But the only time he ever agreed with me was when, well, like straight up just like looked at me, not like in a bad way. It was just like he was always like taking himself too seriously. But the two things, the one time he ever was like, "Yep, you're absolutely right," was when we were shooting a scene and we were talking about uh The Wire,
Oh,
and
I love The Wire.
so good. Me and Catherine are getting married in September, and we are going to watch The Wire before we get married because uh yeah, I love the
It's a
show. And
requirement.
well, no, I just tell her because I was like, that's too tropey of me. Like, it would be nice if we watched it, but like, she's like, you have to watch Twin Peaks, and I'm like,
Okay,
yeah,
good trade.
I love Twin Peaks. I ended up loving it, so I'm like,
Yeah,
just think about it like I thought about Twin Peaks. But I said like the more specific something is, the more universal it becomes. And he's like, yeah, that's actually absolutely right. And I was like,
yeah,
what? Like usually it's like, well, what are you fucking talking about? Like, come on, you're overthinking it. But the more specific a story is to the world, the easier it is to uh apply certain things to derive meaning from it, right? Because it's all happening in this universe, and it all is there for a reason within the universe. So if it makes sense because it's there, and not because the director or the writer was saying like, "Oh, well, I want to make a metaphor for what's happening." He's just like, "No, like this is where the character needs to be, and this is what they need to want in this situation. And so this is where the situation has gotten to. We can make these like that's why it's like what you just said, like, yeah, like the thing I never thought about you're right though. It's like cops, and it's like ICE, and then it all just kind of bleeds together into this fascistic nightmare. But the Andor's kind of like the friend you made along the way, right? Like it's all these people that are kind of lost until they kind of like marry the game, you know. Like they're like they all are kind of like, Val's like probably like a rich, aimless, and she feel and then like, Mon Mothma's kind of got that guilt thing, and Cassian's kind of like, I'm looking for a family, but I don't have one. And all of them find that in the rebellion, you know?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like, I think that's something we can learn from this as well, is they did enlist former stormtroopers and Lieutenant Gorn in their mission. Like they knew these people would be essential to get it done.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's huge. But you're right about art. I saw Chris Fleming, the comedian, on a podcast say, sometimes he's surprised by the audience reacting positively to something he's written because it feels so niche and like weird. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's like, but then it's this beautiful thing of like, if I'm a human being and I experience it, there's someone else out there who will relate to it.
Yes.
And I feel like, yeah, it's a similar thing of what makes good art. Like, it doesn't have to be general. You don't have to think, "Let me write something so I can be understood." If you write from your own experience and, like, really go to the heart of something and provide that catharsis, it's gonna be good art.
Yes. It's, yes, it's that's a funny way of like, yeah, I've been on stage and that's happened to me, and you almost kind of trip and fall into some laughs. Like you
Mhm,
kind of like trust fall. You're like, well, and then you're just like, oh wow, that actually worked. Okay. It's oftentimes why you watch new comedians, and typically they get two big laughs their first set. One of them is because they happen to write a very good joke, like a Mitch Hedberg style. I used to do drugs. I still do. I used to too. Like it's just funny. It's like written
mhm.
well. The other time is when something happens that they weren't expecting and they respond to it honestly. Um, and but yeah, no, that's like the thing with the story. It's like just the story for its own sake. And now we've it's and isn't that like kind of the greatest thing about stories is that like they give you meaning when you look back on your own life, but they also give you meaning when you're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Like,
Mhm.
there's something comforting to knowing just by the very nature of this show, it ends.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
it's like, um, the oh, you know what else I realized with this?
Mhm,
You said it's not really a joke, it's just I think it just happens to be true, which is that there are only 3 forms of, art that, are um, predicated on a one or a zero response in order for them to be defined as art. And one of them is advertising because it makes you want to buy something. The other
mhm.
is porn, and the third thing is comedy because it makes you laugh. And I think that the fourth thing I'm going to add to that category, and I don't know, fascism employs art so that it makes you want to hurt people. Like, I think that it's it the I don't necessarily know that I get it from this episode specifically, but there there is like a culture to this like imperial world. The scenes where he talks a lot about actually I kind of came up with this like fascism needs culture, right? Like it needs to be,
Yeah.
and it's not culture just because they're usually all fucking AI hacks, right? Like like they're not good artists. That's actually why they become fascists because they couldn't hack it. But there's that scene when he's walking the floor of the this new job he has, which is like he's gonna be this like basically like narc, like a forensic accountant narc. And the
Mhm,
guy's like, well, it's not as fun as ball bearings and whatever. And he like makes this little joke about like, and I'm like, that's so crazy. Like
mhm.
that there's like these guys who are doing all this like horrible stuff and they have like jokes about like what the fun horrible stuff is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's so true.
um the what is so how many what percentage of your audience are like first time watchers and what percent are like rewatchers? Do we
I
know?
feel like it's 30% first time about,
Okay.
30% second, 30% third plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say like the audience has gotten like the most out of just by like watching it in a community and like chopping it up with like other people? Like what is the things that like keep popping up in the chat that people are really excited about?
Yeah, I think, like, just having the community has been such a thing. There's always, like, memes in the Discord, and there's always, like, little references to what's going on in the news, and so, what started as, like, "Yeah, let's all watch this together, let's do, like, an online book club type thing," like, within the first few days turned into just, like, a community space of, like, people just wanting to connect about stuff. And for a while, it was about ICE in Minneapolis and our politics. Um, and now it's like the war in Iran. But I think being able to see ourselves in the art and just pointing out, like, oh my God, this thing is just like this thing has been a huge thing that I see. I try not to be in there because I feel like a mom interrupting a play date, like, because I have the power to, like I have the power to ban and block people, and at the beginning, there were some people that were not friendly to our cause that were just going in there and just being trolls and arguing with everyone, and I had to start banning and blocking people, which I didn't wanna do, but they were just in there to ruin it, and I was like, "Oh god." So now I try to leave people alone.
That is such a funny, I don't know what your timeline is. I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
um, well, we got the broken glass policing. We talked a little bit about the emergency stuff, but the how so one thing I was looking at this time is just like now that we've had the Trump administration for 14 months, I do feel like strangely hopeful because of how competent the ISB is,
Mm.
like, and how incompetent the Trump administration is. Like, they put war plans in a signal chat, and like, if Daedra was working, the somebody told me this week they're like hire hard, manage easy. Like, because if you hire the right people,
Yeah.
you're gonna be like doing a lot less work,
Yeah.
and um feel like that's the opposite of how Trump does things, but I feel like that is how Dangerous Boss does things.
Right.
He but like Trump, it's easy to get a job with Trump. Just say, I love Trump. The election was stolen. What do you need me to do? I used to bag groceries. Great. You're the head
Mhm.
of counterintelligence. But it's like these people are all buttoned up and squared away in the ISB meeting, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They can't even decide if we're at war or not, you know? Like,
Yeah.
they don't even have a message to tell the public, let alone know what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
that is a hopeful thing to take away.
Well, if you want to take, yeah, I'm gonna just build on that because I can't find a way to make this funny or concise, but this is brief. It's that if you're trying to convince the American public that you're not at war, the easiest way to do that is claiming something's defensive, which is why if you had a Department of War, you rename it the Department of Defense. But saying that we are not at war with Iran, and I defer to any further comment by the Department of War, is the stupidest fucking branding decision you could ever make. Like, it's
That
a
actually
self
is funny.
it's like the biggest tell ever.
Just the "I defer any comment to the Department of War." Yeah.
Yeah, they say war 3 times and with a negative in front of it, and then they say, "Speak of the Department of War." Well, what are we at
Yeah.
then?
It's the I always see the posts of, like, I'm offended that they're not even trying hard to do a false flag.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
come on, Kash Patel, this guy is such a slacker. Try harder to propagandize me. Make me wanna believe in American war again, you know? It's
yeah,
funny that we're like, "You're depriving us of this cultural experience where we pick
yeah,
apart what you feed us."
yeah. Y'all didn't even, Zoomers are like, they didn't even have a like 200-page like falsified CIA report about the weapons of mass destruction. Like, they don't even
Uh-huh.
bother manufacturing consent. They ship those jobs overseas. Like, there are no manufacturing consent jobs anymore. It's just like whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't need it.
but the dude, Daedra's boss is cunning. He's he's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. The directives given to the group is so interesting because a few episodes ago, one of my favorite quotes from this has been when the ISB officers are sitting around and he asks them, "What is the purpose of this body?" And Dedra rattles off the exact mission of the ISB, like to collect intelligence and use it for, achieving our security objectives and protecting the empire, whatever. And he's like, yes, that is verbatim our mission and wrong. What we really do is we are physicians, we're doctors, we identify diseases and we eradicate them. Basically saying like it's our job to look for rebellions and quash them. And when you think about like intelligence agencies in that way, that you might say that that's the most essential function if you're the intelligence agency of an empire. It's like now we understand why the Doolittle report was produced in the United States to say that the CIA is going to be rooting out communism.
Yeah, well, that's the that's the when he says that, and then you juxtapose it with what is it, Nimic's manifesto, where he says
Yeah.
that it's brittle and it cracks and it has to be perfect.
Mm.
Um, and I think of when they designed the Tokyo subway, they basically, if you heard the story, you had to have heard
No,
it.
the Tokyo subway? No.
Yeah, high speed rail is something that they have in countries that aren't don't spend $8 trillion on forever worse. When they were designing the Tokyo subway, they wanted to figure out the most efficient way to design the rails. So what they did was they put a bunch of fungus on a map of the city, and they were like, these are where we need to put the stops, and then they just let the fungus grow, and that's how they like did it. And it's kind of like what Nimick says, which is like it's just, this guy's comparing it to a disease, right? Nimick's comparing it to this like foundation that keeps cracking, and there are rebellions happening everywhere, right? And it's I just think of the Tokyo subway system every time I hear both of those explanations, is that they find these rebellions, they find ways to connect. They find like-minded individuals gravitate to common values and causes. And well, causes. I was listening to what you and Charles were saying, and I've definitely found that in many endeavors, whether it be comedy or political activity, it's like there are bad faith actors everywhere on both sides, and you have to be especially vigilant in times like these when you want to find community. You need to find community, and you want to trust everybody, but you also need to be protect yourself. Assume the best, but you know, protect yourself. But anyways, um, yeah, it's interesting that he calls it a disease, though. And it's also interesting that he's willing to let it spread a little bit. Like he's willing to use it to kind of to cut out bigger sections of it, right? If we let this part of the rebellion flourish a bit, we have some controlled opposition, then we're going to be able to extricate this entire cell. We will have
Mhm.
exposed this entire network of people because and we see this in today with perfect example is the AI generated, maybe, I don't know, I'm just making a joke, but of our least favorite the country that's going to war with us in Iran. I don't know what the algorithm's like these days. I can't keep track. But BB was, sending suitcases full of money to Qatar to the uh keep those guys funded. And the reason why I believe that, and I know that to be true, even though it's been reported on, is because if you look at every authoritarian leader in the Middle East over the last 75 years, there has always been some level of insurgency that a dictator allows to exist in order to remain propped up by Western powers. Bashar al Assad, Saddam Hussein, all of these leaders always had some kind of like rebel, Egypt, they had the Muslim Brotherhood. It was always kind of this thing that was allowed to exist for the purpose of being able to one dehumanize the opponents of the regime, And two, it allowed the authoritarian to remain a viable option for outside influences, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's really messed up. But
it's an excuse for a greater crackdown, more authoritarian power. Um, and Cyril's mom at the beginning, to go back to the beginning now that we're at the end, how she says, "Oh, just rebels, you know, they'll regret it." The confidence that the Empire is going to find these people and ensure that they can't do this again and that they will be punished is so interesting. Um, Carlos, the founder of Disrupt, was on and spoke about this imagery. He's Cuban, and I don't know if this is a Cuban thing or if it's a meme that we have here, but I've never seen it, and I think I've seen every meme as an online person. But it's a donkey that is strapped to like a traffic cone, and it's just staying in place, and it thinks that it's because it can't move and it must be strapped to a post, but really it's restricted itself. It's in a prison of its own mind, and that's kind of how we act under an authoritarian government because we just assume that everything will be punished.
oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's crazy. This has been so great, Steve. Small plates. I want you to tell the people, one, where to follow you, two, the other thing you want them to follow, which I'll put that in the chat right now.
Yeah, you can follow me at Small Plates IG on Instagram, YT on YouTube, anywhere. There's a link in my bio. But I really want everybody right now in the chat. This is the most important call to action. Is my fiance is doing a. She is the part of a devised horror theater company, and they create their own original work, direct it, write it, produce it in Chicago. It's called Abyssal Zone Collective, so if you can follow them on Instagram, I would be infinitely grateful. Chris Gethard just followed them because he thinks that they're really cool. And it's totally DIY. And that's how she's like Hunter Thompson. She's like, I'm just gonna get weird. She's like, this is how I'm gonna fight back. She's like, you go
I
on your
love
Andor podcast, I'm gonna go figure out how we're going to pull yarn out of our mouths on stage without making
cool.
it look like it's an effect. So thank you.
I love that. That's awesome. I put it in the chat so you can just click the link, go check it out. And we'll have you back on for season 2 if you're up for it.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to go start my rewatch right now, actually. So,
That's amazing. I know, I wanna keep watching too. It's really hard doing the first episode since they were released in threes. So, like,
yes.
oh, the first one's so hard because 'cause you're like, "No, I can't stop here."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is a great show, and I'm so grateful that you had me on here because yeah, this is a welcome addition to my community of creators and artists that are upset about this but are finding the little joys. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, seeing herself in another rebellion makes us feel not alone, I think. And on that note, goodbye, everyone. Have a good night. Take care. Keep your spirits up. See you in the Discord.